Hey guys, so today is November 12th, Saturday, and it is the feast date of the Morrigan. Um, today, well, this video is actually being called A Day with the Morrigan, and that is precisely what it will be for me. I first began celebrating the Morrigan on this day several years ago. Um, Shortly after she called to me, in 2002, I began researching her online to see how other pagans celebrate her, and I kept seeing someone post that. Well, they didn't post. They had a sort of virtual shrine, I believe, dedicated to her, with a bunch of articles that, at the time, they did not write themselves. They were just copying and pasting them. But that's beside the point. However, they made mention of the fact that a date in January was regarded by them as being the feast date of the Morrigan. And I always wondered why that was. When I began to acquaint myself with a lot of Irish Catholic saints, I thought it might be because Saint Anne is celebrated on a special day in January. But that turned out not to be the case because the two dates simply did not coincide, and Saint Anne is thought to have been a Christianization of the goddess Anu, who was an identity of the Morrigan. And when I say identity of the Morrigan, I don't mean a facet of or an aspect of. I actually mean an identity of her. She was the Morrigan by another name. The Morrigan said I am Anu in the Taking of Ireland epic. So you really have this you really have this I'm not really sure what to call it now. I'm at a loss for words, but you really have this ideology in medieval Irish texts in which Celtic goddesses in particular um, are either referred to by a multiple of different names, usually in relation to other goddesses. They are insinuating, or rather directly implying, that they are these other goddesses, just using a different name or title or epithet. We see that quite frequently in the medieval texts, particularly um, under the auspice of the name Bab. For some reason, Bab seems to be very prominent as one of the multitude of names by which a goddess could call herself. Um, and that really shouldn't be very surprising because many scholars have been writing about this subject. That yes, there was this sort of dual theism in Celtic culture, that it's not just something that Wiccans made up or neo-pagans. It's in the ancient records. It's in the medieval literature even. You can't make it up. Yet I am constantly accused by many pagans of doing just that, even though I have the scholars that I can point to and the academic articles that I've read that say much the same thing. So it's not just me making it up, and that is actually what caused me to begin celebrating November 12th as the feast date of the Morrigan. Um, and I did that because Samhain was already, to me anyway, a day to celebrate the dead. And I wanted to give the Morrigan a day of her own, something special that was only hers. Something that she didn't have to share with anyone else. And I was just I was so fortunate enough to find an academic article that said just that she called herself by the name Samhain. And uh, hold on, these are all the academic journal articles. Well, not necessarily all of them, but most of them. There are hundreds and hundreds of academic articles there, but those are all, the printouts that I have acquired over the years. I have many more downstairs that are actually in their published books that I have been able to buy. But in one of these articles, look at the author's name. Mayor Brethna. And actually, the only reason I'm mentioning this is because when I mentioned this project, that I wanted to do a video or start a hashtag video rather of a day with the Morrighan, a day to post a video on YouTube celebrating the Morrighan on what I consider to be her feast day. One of the members of the YouTube pagan group was extremely, I will say, reserved. Um, Probably even cynical, which is not to be unexpected in paganism today. There are a lot of cynical pagans. That even when you mention that you've done the research, they still cast you a lot of side eye. They still cast a lot of shade your way. But you know, I am impeccable when it comes to research. I would not say something if it were not true. Um, but you know, I told him that I would have to go downstairs and dig through all of my academic articles that I've read over the past 15 years, and that's exactly what I did. As you just saw, there were tons that I had to sit through until I finally found the one that I was looking for. And this article is called "The Sovereignty Goddess as Goddess of Death?" Question mark. And if you haven't read it, I strongly recommend it. It's really, really good. It's nice and juicy. But there's actually a really good article that I have downstairs from the journal Speculum, which is about the hag aspect of the sovereignty goddess being equated with leprosy, which is a really, really fascinating take on the subject. I haven't quite finished the article, but I've been reading it and digesting it slowly. It's really, really fascinating. But there is a tale that's extremely similar to the Dodurga's hostile tale, or hostel, in which a hag goddess by the name of Cailb, Cailb, stands on one leg at the door and holding up one hand and breathing one breath, sings all of her names, which is extremely similar to what the Morrighan and the Bath have done in their tales. In fact, among this hag's names are Samhain, Nawan, and Bath. The latter two are renowned identities of the Morrighan. The person to whom she is singing these names, Diarmaid, considers them loathsome, is immediately aware of their significance, and he swears he would never call her by any of them. So that is my reasoning, that is what has underscored, or that is what I've used to underscore my reasoning for celebrating the Morrighan on Samhain. Actually, November 12th is the old style date of Samhain, because as I said, I didn't want to um, share um, traditional Halloween with the goddess. I wanted to give her something special that was only hers alone. And those cynical pagans might say, well, that's not really the Morrigan, you know. But, it's really splitting hairs. Many scholars say that there is this tradition of calling the goddesses by different names and epithets that ultimately relate to a central figure. And that's not really something that you can get around unless you perform um, these mental gymnastics to do so. So I am not as conservative as some pagans are that would cry foul when they saw someone making an argument like that. I try to let the evidence take me where it will. I don't necessarily discredit something because it disagrees at the face of what I believe or what I have concluded. I try and give the evidence the merit it deserves. Yet I know that there are many pagans that have been so taken in by the research of Professor Ronald Hutton, who is himself extremely conservative, that they believe that they now have to be equally as conservative as he in order to be taken seriously. And that's not necessarily the best course of action. I have personally read Professor Hutton's works rather critically myself, and I have found them lacking. He makes horrendous umbrella statements. He puts his personal opinion forth as though they're an axiomatic fact. Um, he will engage in many logical fallacies. Um, one of which, it just kills me to see it, is when he will contrive a special formal rule for someone else to have to abide by in order for Hutton to accept his views. Then 2 or 3 pages later, Hutton will break his own rules. Now that's just not cool. You just really shouldn't be doing that. I have also found Professor Hutton cherry picking his evidence and completely ignoring evidence that disagrees with his thesis, even when the author in question demonstrably proves Hutton's conclusions to be wrong, or at least extremely outdated. Yet Hutton has left a very conservative mark on paganism as a whole, and I really think that the pendulum needs to swing back to something far more centrist, because it's gone from extremely wishy-washy to extremely conservative, and now it needs to come back to a more central point. But I digress. Today is really about the Morrigan. Excuse me. I haven't been awake too long. This is an early morning video, and I'm right in the path of the sun. It's totally washing me out on camera today. But the Morrigan to me is not a warrior goddess. And that may come as a shock and even sound extremely controversial to some people, but I said from the moment that she chose me that I would allow the scholarship to lead me where it may. And I was true to that from the very beginning. As I began to research not just Celtic studies, I didn't read Celtic literature until a little later on, because I wanted to see what Celtic scholars had to say on the subject first. I didn't want to commit the fallacy that I see so many evangelical Christians doing of taking this medieval literature and taking it literally. And I see many, many, many pagans taking it literally. To their own fault, of course. But what really led me to conclude that she's not a war goddess is, well, first of all, the Tane in the Tambo Kuli epic wasn't directly incited by her. In fact, the goddess who does directly incite it was Ned. And that actually, I was just rereading this text earlier today, and I forgot to mention it, but it does look like Ned is using an unusual spelling of Mede or even Mod, may have been implied in this list of names. And Mev, of course, is associated with mead and honey and the concept of sovereignty. But it was also the Celtic scholars who were writing that clerical redactors intentionally made the Morrighan appear more ferocious so that they could emphasize Cuchulain's more fierce, heroic characteristics, to make him appear to be a more fierce cultural hero. But it was more than that. It was also looking into Indo-European studies and saying that just because she fought alongside the gods in the taking of Ireland does not necessarily make her a war goddess, any more than it makes Hermes a war god for doing the exact same thing in a very common Indo-European epic called the War of the Gods. It would be very similar to Christians raising a banner to the Virgin Mary before a fight. That doesn't necessarily make her a war goddess in that aspect either. But I was also, I also have a pretty good understanding of biblical narrative. And I was also able to trace many of the more ferocious, many of the more ferocious, many of the more bellicose things that the Morrighan has done to the Christian Old Testament, in particular the Book of Moses, when Moses freed the Hebrews from Pharaoh's rule. And it was really all of this sort of coalescing together that really made me take a second look at her identity as a war goddess. In fact, that identity is traceable to one article that is over 100 years old by, hold on, it was from Revue Publique. It's called The Ancient Irish Goddess of War by W.M. Hennessy. And no one questioned it for a very long time. And still, it's extremely controversial to question it today. Yet you have to understand that the Celtic gods were not classical gods. They were not Hellenistic gods. They were not pigeonholed into these little neat compartments or holes or identities. They were extremely multifaceted. They represented multiple functions of life. The Celtic goddess was the goddess of sovereignty. She was the personification of the land itself. And I take that to heart in many ways. When I grow my herbs, I feel close to the goddess. When I harvest them to make magic or medicine, I feel close to my goddess. When I when I bake, I feel close to my goddess because the Morgan is also a hearth goddess. There are ancient cooking spits known as the Morgan's hearth in throughout Ireland. Um, the Morgan is a hearth goddess. She is a vegetation goddess, an earth mother goddess in the academic sense of the word. She is she is also the death crone of the chieftain, who, if you screw over the people you're chosen to represent, then you forfeit your life. Another must be chosen to replace you. You know, um, she does not call out the doom of the plebeians, of we lowly pagans. It would be the presidents, the prime ministers, the bankers, even the oligarchy class that she would be going after for harming her people, her society, those that depend on her for survival. Because if things don't grow, then we are SOL. But on the other hand, um, I do have a very a very strong Irish need to fight for what's right, to defend my brothers and sisters of the craft, of the gay community, of the world, of the U.S. of fucking A. We have a fascist for president now, and that is because the Democratic Party did not take seriously progressive values that could have elevated them. In fact, they chose to ignore us, and that God, that just sucks balls, and not in a good way. Um, but I've been ranting today, and I plan to spend the day really with my goddess, communing with her. But also I fight in her name. I fight for every single one of you. I love you. I think of you whenever I donate to charity, when I donate of my time, when I give what I can. I think of you all the time, of those suffering, of those who have not, of those who are sick, hungry, and dying. I think of you. And I pray to my goddess to help them in any way that we can. Um, but ultimately, what my relationship with my goddess is really none of your business. You know, um, I do not come into your temple and say you're doing this, that, and the other wrong. You should really be not be doing that to me. It's extremely disrespectful. In fact, the only one who matters in this relationship is me and the goddess. Um, it's my relationship with hers and her relationship with mine that matters, not yours. It is. Uh, it is so infuriating to have to defend myself to someone when they don't matter. You may think that I am offensive to the goddess. That's fine. But don't you think that the only one who really matters here is the goddess herself? After all, she chose me. Um, Trying to interfere in someone else's relationship with their divines, with a divinity, is extremely, extremely rude. But as I said, I really try to take her day and to commune with her. But I also like to take that day and to really try and help those that need help, even if it's um, being an activist for many, many, many goals. I am a socialist. I became a socialist because I have a heart. Because the Democrats are just as corrupt as the Republicans. But again, I'm, I'm getting off topic. Again, usually on this day, as I've said, I commune with the goddess. I bake, cakes for her, Sabbath cakes. I have a little, just a very simple ritual for her because she doesn't need anything very extraordinary, very elaborate. Um, but I also take the time to use my tarot cards to really commune with her. And I actually have a story about the first deck of tarot cards I ever bought. I ordered them from Barnes& and Noble, and the irony is, a week later, I saw them for sale at. Well, a week later, after I bought them, I saw them for sale at Half Price Bookstore for, half price, and I was like, damn it. But when I got out of the car, there was a big raven or crow sitting right over the entrance of the doorway, right over the very middle of the car where the door is open, calling at me. And when I bought my cards, I actually met with another witch who works at the register there. But as I was walking back out, I saw two more crows perched directly over my car. They were perched right atop the light pole that we had parked under. And over the years that I have um, shopped for books in that area, I've never ever seen crows perched atop a light pole there before. And I'm a frequent customer of Barnes& and Noble. I prefer Borders better, but yeah, gotta go with what's available. But I really took that as a sign from the goddess herself that she was there for me. She was giving me her blessing in a sense. So that was really a really moving moment to me as a priest of the Morrigan. And I really hope that you have a wonderful day today. And if you serve the Morrigan, I really hope to see what videos you will be uploading to see how you might want to celebrate the Morrigan on this day, or how you celebrate the Morrigan in general. You know, I really find that interesting. I really get a little bit of a kick out of it. Seeing how others do it. Really comparing notes, seeing how others do it similar to me, which really surprised me. So until next time, I will bid you adieu, and I will get back to it because I'm really, really busy today. Ta.